Most men beg when you put a gun to their head. Damien Moretti smiled like he'd been waiting for it. The rain hammered against the penthouse windows hard enough to shake the glass behind him. Manhattan glittered 30 floors below us, like a city that had no idea monsters were real. My hand trembled anyway, not because I was scared, because Damien Moretti wasn't reacting the way dangerous men were supposed to react. The barrel of my Glock pressed against the center of his forehead. 1 inch higher, and I could see the faint scar near his hairline. 1 inch lower, and I could feel the warmth of his skin through the cold steel. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't even look at the gun. His green eyes stayed locked on mine like he was studying something beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Do it," he said quietly. His voice rolled through the dark room smooth as whiskey.
Calm.
Controlled.
Completely insane.
My breathing turned uneven. The penthouse smelled like rain, expensive cologne, and smoke from the fireplace crackling behind him. Somewhere down the hallway, one of his security men groaned softly after the chaos downstairs, but nobody dared enter this room. Nobody interrupted Damien Moretti. "You killed my brother," I whispered. Saying the words out loud should have made this easier. It didn't. Damien tilted his head slightly, almost curious. "That's what they told you?" The city lights flashed across his face as lightning split the clouds outside. God, he looked dangerous. Black dress shirt rolled to his elbows. Dark hair slightly messy for the first time since I'd met him 3 nights ago at the Romano Foundation Gala. Back then, he'd looked untouchable. Like the kind of man built from tailored suits, private security, and whispered rumors people were too afraid to repeat twice. Every woman in that ballroom watched him when he walked past. Every man lowered his voice around him.
And me?
I was there pretending to be someone else entirely. A donor's assistant in a borrowed black dress and heels that nearly broke my ankles. I still remembered the exact moment he noticed me. I'd been carrying 2 champagne glasses through the crowd when his eyes lifted from his whiskey tumbler and landed directly on me from across the room. It felt physical, like a hand around my throat. "Careful," he'd said later when I nearly dropped one of the glasses beside his table. "You shake when you lie."
They frozen instantly.
Because I hadn't even spoken yet. Damien smiled faintly now, standing motionless in front of my gun like he could already hear the memory replaying in my head. "You've been angry for a long time, Claire," he said softly. My stomach twisted. "Don't say my name."
"Why?"
His voice dropped lower, gentler somehow. "It sounds good when I say it." I tightened my grip on the gun. This man was poison. Every instinct screamed it. 3 years ago, my younger brother Ethan vanished after trying to expose organized crime ties inside the city. 3 months later, they found his body near the Hudson. The police called it gang-related. Closed case. End of story. But 2 weeks ago, an anonymous file landed in my apartment mailbox with one name typed across the top in bold black letters. Damien Moretti. Since then, every road led here. Every lie. Every secret. Every sleepless night. I spent 48 hours getting close enough to destroy him. And somehow, somewhere between the lies and the late-night conversations and the way he looked at me like he saw straight through every wall I built, something stopped making sense. Because monsters weren't supposed to protect little girls from reporters outside charity events. They weren't supposed to remember how I took my coffee. They definitely weren't supposed to stare at me like losing me would ruin them. Damien took one slow step closer until the gun pressed harder against his skin. My pulse exploded. "If you're going to pull the trigger," he murmured, "you need to stop looking at me like you want answers first." Then he smiled again. And this time it looked almost sad. The strangest part was not that Damien Moretti stood in front of a loaded gun without fear. It was that somehow, I was the one losing control. My fingers stayed frozen against the trigger while rain streaked down the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him like the entire city was drowning with us.
Damien watched me.
Carefully, his expression unreadable now, but his eyes stayed soft in a way that made my chest tighten painfully. Dangerous men were not supposed to look at people like that. Especially not me. "You should hate me," I said quietly. "I tried," he replied. The answer hit harder than I expected. I swallowed hard and stepped back half an inch, enough to breathe again. The fireplace crackled beside us, throwing shadows across the marble floor and the dark navy walls of the penthouse. Everything about this place felt expensive, controlled,
Cold.
but Damien stood in the middle of it with his sleeves rolled up and exhaustion carved into his face like he had not slept in weeks, maybe months. I hated that I noticed. 3 years ago, I whispered, my brother disappeared after investigating corruption inside the Port Authority. He told me if anything happened to him, there was one name I should remember. Damien did not interrupt. Yours. A muscle moved slightly in his jaw. That was the first crack I had seen all night. Ethan Bennett was brave, he said softly. Hearing my brother's name in his voice made my stomach twist violently. Do not talk about him. Why? His eyes held mine. Because I remember him better than the police ever did? Anger surged through me fast enough to burn. I grabbed the front of his shirt with my free hand and shoved him backward toward the glass windows. The city lights exploded behind him in blurred gold and white reflections. You do not get to pretend you cared about him. Damien looked down at my hand gripping his shirt, then back at me.
Calm.
Always calm. Claire, he said quietly, if I wanted to hurt you, you would not have made it past the lobby. The truth in his voice terrified me more than the threat itself. Because he was right. I had walked into the most protected building in Manhattan carrying a stolen identity and a gun in my purse. Every security camera should have caught me. Every guard should have stopped me. But somehow doors opened anyway. Elevators cleared. Hallways emptied. Like someone had allowed me inside on purpose. My heartbeat slowed suddenly. You knew I was coming. Damien did not answer immediately. Thunder rolled outside across the skyline while silence stretched between us. Then finally, he gave the smallest nod. Since the gala.
Cold spread through my chest. Why?
He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. Because the second you walked into that ballroom, he said quietly, I recognized the same look your brother had the night he died. I felt the blood drain from my face. What does that mean? Damien exhaled slowly, like the memory physically hurt him. Then his gaze shifted briefly toward the rain outside before returning to mine. It means Ethan was trying to save someone. My grip loosened instantly.
Who?
For the first time all night, Damien looked away from me completely. His reflection stared back from the black glass behind him. Tired, haunted, human.
Me, he said.
The worst lies are the ones wrapped around the truth. I stared at Damien Moretti while thunder rolled across Manhattan, and for the first time since my brother died, I did not know what to believe anymore. You are lying, I whispered, but my voice sounded weak even to me. Damien stayed near the window, one hand resting loosely in his pocket, the other hanging at his side like he had completely forgotten there was still a gun pointed at his chest. Rain reflected across his face in shifting silver shadows. I wish I was, he said quietly. My pulse pounded so hard it hurt. Ethan had spent months digging into corruption at the ports before he disappeared. He stopped answering calls, stopped sleeping, started checking over his shoulder every time we went anywhere together. I remembered one night sitting across from him in our tiny Brooklyn apartment while cold pizza sat untouched between us. He looked exhausted, terrified. If something happens to me, he told me back then, do not trust anybody wearing a badge. I thought grief had distorted that memory over time. Now I was not so sure anymore. Start talking, I demanded. Damien studied me for a moment, almost like he was deciding how much damage the truth would cause. Then he moved slowly toward the bar near the fireplace and poured himself a glass of water instead of whiskey. Somehow that unsettled me more. 3 years ago, he began quietly. Someone inside the city started selling information to a cartel moving through the East Coast ports. Judges, police, politicians. Everybody got paid. He looked exhausted saying it. Not nervous, not defensive, just tired. Your brother found proof. I tightened my grip on the gun. And he brought it to you? Damien nodded once. Ethan thought I could expose them without starting a war. Bitter amusement touched his face for less than a second. He still believed good people could survive this city. My chest tightened painfully at that because it sounded exactly like Ethan. Stubborn, reckless, hopeful to the point of stupidity sometimes. What happened? Damien stared down into the glass in his hand before answering. He came to me the night everything collapsed. Silence stretched between us while rain battered the windows harder. He was scared, Damien admitted softly. Not for himself.
For you.
My breathing caught. Damien looked up slowly. He made me promise something that night. What? His eyes locked onto mine again, steady and unreadable. That if anything happened to him, I would keep you out of this world. Something inside me cracked slightly hearing that. I hated it immediately. Do not pretend you cared about him. I respected him. His voice stayed calm, but there was something rough underneath it now. Something real. There are not many men brave enough to walk into my office carrying evidence against half the city. I shook my head hard. If you respected him so much, why is he dead? Damien went silent. Completely silent. The kind that filled the entire room. Then finally, he said the one thing I never expected. Because he trusted the wrong cop. My stomach dropped. Damien walked toward the fireplace slowly, the glow of the flames catching the sharp lines of his face. The detective assigned to Ethan's case was already owned by the cartel before your brother ever walked into that station. Every instinct inside me screamed that this could still be manipulation. Another lie. Another game. But then Damien reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out something folded carefully in half. A photograph. He held it toward me without moving closer. I think you deserve to see this. My hand shook slightly as I lowered the gun enough to grab the photo. The second I looked down, my entire world tilted sideways. It was Ethan, standing beside Damien on a rooftop somewhere at night.
Alive.
Smiling. And written across the bottom in my brother's messy handwriting were 4 words that made my blood run cold. Trust him, if I cannot. Grief changes shape when hope suddenly appears inside it. My hands started shaking so badly, I almost dropped the photograph into the fire. Ethan stood beside Damien on that rooftop smiling like he trusted him completely. Like he knew something I never did. I stared at my brother's handwriting again and again, trying to convince myself it was fake. But I knew every curve of those letters. Ethan used to leave sticky notes around our apartment before work just to annoy me. Buy real coffee. Stop eating cereal for dinner. You deserve better than this city. My chest physically hurt looking at those words now. Trust him, if I cannot. Where did you get this? My voice barely worked. Damien stayed quiet for a second too long. Ethan gave it to me. I looked up instantly. The night he disappeared? Damien nodded once. Rainwater slid down the windows behind him in silver streams while the firelight flickered across the sharp angles of his face. He looked exhausted now that the mask had slipped slightly. Not weak. Just worn down by something older than tonight. He knew they were watching him, Damien said quietly. The police. The cartel. Maybe both. My stomach twisted violently. Why did he not come to me? The answer came softer than I expected. Because he loved you. I hated how quickly tears burned behind my eyes hearing that. Damien noticed immediately. Of course he did. Men like him noticed everything. He set the glass of water aside and stepped closer slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. Claire. Do not. I backed away instantly. Do not stand there pretending this changes anything. His expression tightened slightly. It changes everything. You are still Damien Moretti. I pointed the gun back at him, even though my arm no longer felt. Steady. People are terrified of you for a reason. They should be. The honesty in his voice stopped me cold.
No denial. No excuse.
Just truth. He glanced toward the rain-covered skyline beyond the glass. I have done terrible things to survive this world. There was no pride in it. That unsettled me more than arrogance would have. Silence stretched between us again while thunder echoed somewhere over the East River. I looked around the penthouse, suddenly noticing details I missed before. The untouched whiskey near the fireplace. The half-open piano in the corner covered with dust like nobody had touched it in years. A framed photograph on the bookshelf facing away from the room instead of toward it. Strange details for a man everyone called a monster. Why did you let me get close to you? I asked quietly. Damien's eyes returned to mine immediately. Because the second I saw you at that gala, he admitted, I knew exactly who you were. My heartbeat stumbled. You recognized me? You have Ethan's eyes. Something about the way he said it made the room suddenly feel too small, too warm. I should have sent you away, he continued softly. But after 3 years, he stopped himself. I frowned slightly. After 3 years, what? Damien looked down briefly before answering. I was tired of carrying his promise alone. The vulnerability in that sentence hit me harder than any threat could have. This man was supposed to be untouchable, cold, calculated. But standing here now beneath the storm and the firelight, Damien Moretti looked painfully human for the first time. And somehow that scared me more than the stories ever did. A sharp buzz suddenly broke the silence from somewhere inside his jacket pocket. Damien ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again.
Urgent.
Relentless. His jaw tightened instantly. What is it? I asked. Damien did not answer right away. He pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen, and for the first time all night, real fear crossed his face. He looked up at me slowly. Claire, he said quietly, you need to leave. Right now. You can learn everything about a man from the first moment he becomes afraid. Damien Moretti had looked calm with a gun inches from his heart. But one phone call turned all the color from his face in seconds. My pulse spiked instantly. What happened? I asked. Damien slipped the phone back into his jacket without answering. Every muscle in his body had gone rigid now, his attention shifting toward the penthouse entrance, like he was already calculating threats I could not see yet. Claire, he repeated quietly, you need to leave. No, the answer came faster than I expected. Maybe because I was tired of running from half-truths. Maybe because for the first time in 3 years, I was standing in front of someone who actually knew what happened to Ethan. Damien's eyes darkened slightly. This is not a negotiation. Then stop talking to me, like I am one of your employees. Something flickered across his face at that. Not anger. Something closer to disbelief. Like nobody spoke to him that way anymore. Another vibration buzzed from his phone. Damien ignored it again. Then footsteps echoed sharply outside the penthouse doors. Fast.
Urgent.
The sound instantly changed the atmosphere in the room. I noticed it immediately. The security detail outside was moving differently now. Tense. Damien. A voice came through the door.
Male.
Controlled, but strained underneath. We have a problem. Damien closed his eyes briefly, like he already knew. Then he looked back at me. Go into the office beside the piano and lock the door. I am not hiding. Claire. His voice dropped lower. Dangerous this time. Please. The word stunned me more than anything else tonight. Men like Damien Moretti did not say please. Before I could answer, the penthouse doors opened anyway. 3 men stepped inside wearing dark tailored suits soaked from the storm outside. They moved with the same quiet precision I noticed at the gala, but all 3 looked on edge now. The tallest one stopped immediately when he saw me standing there with the gun still in my hand. His eyes widened slightly. Boss, Damien never looked away from me. Speak. The man swallowed once. The detective is dead. Silence crashed into the room so hard I physically felt it. Damien's jaw tightened instantly. When? About 20 minutes ago.
Cold spread slowly through my chest.
Detective Lawson. The lead investigator on Ethan's case. The same detective Damien claimed was corrupt. That is impossible, I whispered. Nobody answered me. Damien finally looked toward his men, his expression unreadable again, but I could see the storm underneath it now. Controlled chaos. Who found him? Internal affairs. The second man stepped forward carefully. But that is not the worst part. Damien's eyes sharpened instantly. Say it. The room went completely still. Before he died, the man said quietly, Lawson sent a file to the press. My heartbeat stumbled. Damien looked toward me immediately. Not angry. Not accusing. Worried. Actually worried. What file? He asked. The men hesitated for half a second too long. Then finally, everything connected to Ethan Bennett. The floor beneath me suddenly felt unstable. Ethan's name echoed in my head while rain hammered violently against the windows behind us.
No, y whisperat.
Damien moved toward me instantly. Claire. No. I stepped backward away from him, panic rising fast enough to burn through my lungs. If Ethan's investigation had gone public, then every person involved would start cleaning up loose ends. Witnesses. Evidence.
Me.
Damien reached for my wrist carefully, like he thought I might break apart if he touched me too hard. Listen to me. You knew this was coming? My voice cracked. Did you? I suspected Lawson was scared. His hand tightened slightly around my wrist.
Warm. Steady.
But I did not think he would move this fast. One of the men near the door suddenly cursed under his breath while checking his phone. Damien's head snapped toward him immediately. What now? The man looked up slowly, his face pale beneath the penthouse lights. The press released Claire's name too. There are moments when your entire life splits into before and after. Hearing my name connected to Ethan's case on national news was one of them. Everything inside the penthouse suddenly moved faster after that. Damien's men started talking over each other near the entrance, while phones buzzed nonstop across the room. I barely heard any of it. My mind kept replaying one sentence again and again. The press released Claire's name too. My lungs felt too tight to breathe properly.
How?
I whispered. How would they even know about me? Damien was already moving.
Calm.
Focused. Deadly efficient in a way that terrified me because this was clearly familiar territory for him. Because Lawson wanted leverage before he died, he said sharply while grabbing a black wool coat from the chair beside the fireplace. And because someone inside the department fed your identity to the media the second the story broke. He crossed the room toward me quickly and held the coat out. Put this on. I stared at him without moving. Damien, Claire. His voice softened for half a second. Please do not argue with me right now. That almost made me obey immediately. Almost. You still have not told me who killed Ethan. Something flashed across his face then. Guilt maybe. Or anger. And I will, he said quietly. But if we stay here another 10 minutes, you may not survive long enough to hear it. The honesty in his voice chilled me harder than the storm outside. One of the men near the door suddenly walked toward us holding a tablet. Boss. Damien looked up instantly. What? The man hesitated before turning the screen toward him. The networks are already running her photo. My stomach dropped. Damien took the tablet without a word. I should not have looked, but I did. My driver's license photo filled the screen beneath a headline about corruption, organized crime, and the reopened Ethan Bennett investigation. Reporter's sister linked to Mafia figured Damien Moretti. My hands went numb. This cannot be happening. Damien lowered the tablet slowly, his jaw tight enough to cut glass. It is exactly what Ethan tried to prevent. Rain crashed against the windows again, louder this time, while somewhere far below sirens echoed through Manhattan. Everything suddenly felt too close. Too loud. Too real. They're going to think I helped you, I whispered. The police. The media. Everyone. Damien looked directly at me. You did not. That does not matter anymore. Silence stretched between us. Heavy. Then Damien stepped closer until his voice dropped low. Enough that only I could hear it. Listen carefully to me, Claire. Something about the way he said my name made me meet his eyes instantly. From this moment forward, nobody outside this room can know where you are. Fear slid slowly down my spine. You think somebody is coming after me? Damien held my gaze for one long second, too many. I know they are. Before I could answer, every light in the penthouse suddenly shut off at once. Darkness swallowed the room instantly except for flashes of lightning beyond the windows. One of Damien's men cursed sharply near the door. Backup generator is down. My heartbeat exploded. The city skyline outside flickered through rain and thunder, while the entire penthouse sank into darkness. Then I felt Damien's hand close tightly around mine for the first time all night.
Warm.
Steady. Protective. Stay behind me, he said quietly. Somewhere down the hallway, glass shattered. And Damien Moretti's expression turned cold enough to stop my breathing. The sound of breaking glass changes when you know somebody is coming for you. It becomes sharper. Colder. Final. Every instinct in my body locked tight as Damien pulled me behind him in the darkness. The emergency lights finally flickered on a second later, bathing the penthouse in deep red shadows that made everything feel unreal. His men spread out instantly through the room with terrifying coordination while rain and thunder swallowed the city outside. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody panicked. That scared me more than chaos would have. Damien still held my hand. I realized it only because his grip tightened slightly when another crash echoed somewhere down the hallway. "Stay close to me," he said quietly. His calm voice somehow cut through the fear hammering inside my chest. "Who is it?" I whispered. Damien did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed fixed toward the dark corridor near the elevators, every muscle in his body tense now. Then finally, somebody desperate. One of the security men moved back into the living room quickly. "The cameras are gone completely," he said. Whoever hit the building knew exactly where to cut power. Damien nodded once like he expected that. "Already? How many entries?" "2 confirmed." Cold slid down my spine. This was not random. Whoever came here knew the penthouse layout, knew the timing, knew Damien's security systems, which meant somebody close to him betrayed him. I saw the realization hit Damien at the exact same time it hit me. His jaw tightened slightly. Not surprised. Disappointed. Somehow that looked worse. "Damien," I whispered carefully, "who knows about this place?" His eyes shifted toward me briefly. "Too many people." Then suddenly another sound echoed through the apartment. A phone ringing. Not Damien's.
Mine.
The noise cut through the red-lit silence, so sharply I almost jumped. My phone was still inside my coat pocket. Forgotten until now. Damien looked at me instantly. "Do not answer it." But the screen lighting through the fabric caught my attention first. Unknown number. My heartbeat sped up. What if it is important? "Claire." His voice dropped lower. "Nobody trying to protect you calls anonymously tonight." Another ring. Then another. Something inside me twisted painfully. I pulled the phone out anyway. Damien stepped closer immediately, tension radiating off him now. "Claire." The second I answered, static crackled softly through the speaker. Then a man's voice came through low and distorted. "You should have stayed out of your brother's investigation." Ice flooded my veins. Damien's expression turned deadly the second he heard the voice. "Who is this?" I demanded. Soft laughter answered me. Ethan asked the same question before he died. My knees nearly gave out. Damien grabbed my arm instantly to steady me. "Listen to me carefully," the voice continued. "The man standing beside you is not protecting you because he cared about your brother." I looked up at Damien automatically. His face had gone completely unreadable now. "He is protecting you because you are the last witness." The line went dead. Silence swallowed the room again except for the storm outside and my own uneven breathing. Damien slowly took the phone from my shaking hand and turned it off completely. "Claire, tell me he is lying." My voice cracked hard enough to embarrass me. Damien stayed quiet too long. Fear spread slowly through my chest watching him hesitate. "Damien." He closed his eyes briefly before answering. "I never lied to you about Ethan. That is not what I asked." Red emergency lights flickered across his face while thunder rolled behind the windows again. Then finally, very quietly, he said the one thing I was not prepared to hear. "Your brother died because he trusted me." Some truths do not break your heart all at once. They split it slowly while the person standing in front of you watches it happen. I stared at Damien Moretti beneath the flashing red emergency lights, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I understood why people feared him so much. Not because he shouted, not because he threatened, but because he carried pain like it weighed nothing at all. "Explain that," I whispered. My voice sounded hollow even to me. Damien's men had gone silent around us now. Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. Even the storm outside seemed distant beneath the tension crushing the room. Damien looked exhausted suddenly. Older somehow. "Claire," he said quietly. "The night Ethan came to me, he already knew someone inside the department planned to erase him." I swallowed hard. "Then why did you let him leave?" That question finally hit him. I saw it in the way his shoulders tightened almost invisibly. "Because he asked me to." Anger surged through me so fast it burned away the fear for a second. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. His voice stayed calm, but there was something dangerous underneath it now. Not toward me. Toward himself. Damien stepped closer slowly, while thunder rolled across the skyline outside. Ethan wanted to bring the evidence, public legally. He still believed the system could work if the right people saw the truth. A bitter smile touched Damien's mouth for half a second. I told him the system was already bought. My chest tightened painfully because that sounded exactly like Ethan. Stubborn enough to walk straight into danger if he thought he could save somebody else. We argued for almost an hour, Damien admitted quietly. He accused me of hiding behind violence instead of fixing anything. I blinked.
Slowly.
That sounds like him. Damien's expression softened in a way that physically hurt to watch. Yes, he said softly. It does. Silence filled the penthouse again except for rain hitting the windows. Somewhere in the hallway, security continued searching the building floor by floor, but the noise felt far away now. Damien looked at me carefully before speaking again. When Ethan left my office that night, I gave him 2 men to protect him. Hope flickered painfully inside me. Then what happened? Damien's jaw tightened. Somebody inside my organization betrayed his route before he reached Brooklyn. Cold spread slowly through my stomach. You're saying one of your people sold him out? Damien nodded once. And by the time I realized it, he stopped talking. I watched his throat move slightly, like the rest of that sentence physically hurt to say. I was too late. Something inside me cracked hearing that. Not because I trusted him completely. I did not. But because for the first time in 3 years, somebody else looked devastated when they spoke about Ethan too. Damien glanced toward the dark windows briefly before continuing in a quieter voice. I spent 3 years trying to find which one of my men betrayed him. My heartbeat slowed suddenly. Did you? Damien looked back at me. Tonight confirmed it. Before I could ask what he meant, one of the security men moved quickly toward us from the hallway. Boss. Damien's entire posture shifted instantly back into control. What? The man hesitated. We found how they entered the building. Damien waited silently. The man swallowed once. They used your private access codes. The room went completely still. My pulse spiked immediately. Damien's expression did not change at all, but something cold settled into his eyes now. Only 4 people have those codes, he said quietly. 3. Another voice answered from the penthouse entrance. Every person in the room turned instantly. A man stepped out of the shadows near the elevator, wearing a dark charcoal suit and rain dripping from his shoulders. Mid-30s. Clean cut.
Calm.
And the second Damien saw him, all emotion disappeared from his face completely. Luca, Damien said softly. The man smiled faintly. You always were too trusting, brother. Family betrayal feels different from every other kind. It does not explode all at once. It settles into the room slowly until nobody can breathe normally anymore. Damien stood completely still across from Luca while rain crashed against the windows behind us and red emergency lights painted both brothers in shadows. They looked alike in ways I had not noticed before. Same dark hair. Same sharp jawline. Same calm eyes that hid too much. But where Damien carried exhaustion like a scar beneath his skin, Luca carried amusement.
Cold.
Easy. Dangerous. You sold Ethan out, Damien said quietly. Luca loosened the cuffs of his soaked charcoal suit like this was a business meeting instead of betrayal. You make it sound personal. Something shifted in Damien's expression then. Tiny. Almost invisible. But every man in the room straightened instantly, like they felt danger move through the air. It was personal, Damien replied. Luca's smile faded slightly. You always were weak when it came to innocent people. My pulse hammered harder hearing that. Damien did not deny it. Ethan believed he could save the city. Luca continued casually. You believed you could save Ethan. He glanced toward me finally for the first time. And now here we are. I hated how calm he sounded saying my brother's name. Damien stepped slightly in front of me without thinking. Protective. Instinctive. Luca noticed immediately. Interesting, he murmured. You really do care about her. Leave her out of this. Damien's voice dropped low enough to freeze the room.
Luca laughed softly.
That is exactly what Ethan begged us to do too. Pain flashed across Damien's face before disappearing instantly. But I saw it. God help me, I saw all of it. The guilt, the grief, the exhaustion of carrying this alone for 3 years. You could have told me the truth, I whispered suddenly. Damien did not look at me. I tried. No, my throat tightened painfully. You protected me from the truth.
Luca smiled faintly.
And there it is. Damien finally turned toward me then. Claire, you let me hate you. My voice
cracked.
For 3 years. His eyes softened in a way that nearly destroyed me. Because your hatred kept you alive. Silence swallowed the room. I stared at him while thunder rolled across Manhattan again, and suddenly everything made horrible sense. The distance, the secrecy, the way he looked at me like he already lost something before I ever walked into his life. Damien never tried to make me love him. He just wanted me breathing. Luca shook his head slowly. You know what your problem is, brother? Damien did not answer. You mistake guilt for redemption. Luca's eyes shifted toward me again. Ethan died because Damien trusted the wrong people. Just like you're doing now. I should have been afraid. Maybe part of me still was. But another part had already made a choice somewhere between the lies and the truth, and the way Damien looked at me like I mattered more than his own survival. Luca reached slowly inside his jacket. Every security man in the room reacted instantly. Damien stepped directly in front of me fully this time. Enough, he said coldly. Luca stopped moving. Then slowly, he pulled out a small silver flash drive instead. Everything Ethan uncovered is on this. My heartbeat stumbled, including the names of every politician, judge, and officer connected to the cartel. Damien's expression hardened immediately. Why bring it here? Luca smiled without warmth. Because now they are coming for all of us. Sirens suddenly echoed loudly from the streets below. Multiple vehicles.
Fast.
Damien moved toward the windows instantly, while one of his men cursed under his breath. Boss, he said tensely. Federal agents just entered the building. My stomach dropped. Damien looked back at me immediately. Not angry. Not afraid. Just certain. Then he crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pressed the flash drive into my shaking hand. Claire, he said quietly, if anything happens tonight, you run. I stared at him, panic rising instantly. No, his hand closed gently around mine for one brief second.
Warm. Steady.
Human. Your brother died trying to expose the truth, he whispered. Do not let his sacrifice disappear with me. The hardest part about losing someone is realizing how many versions of your future disappeared with them. I stood in Damien Moretti's penthouse with Ethan's flash drive clutched tightly in my hand while federal sirens echoed closer through the storm below, and suddenly every path forward felt impossible. Damien watched me carefully, like he already knew exactly what I was thinking.
Run.
Stay. Trust him. Betray him. Every choice carried consequences now. The agents are already on the 32nd floor, one of the security men warned sharply from near the hallway. We have maybe 2 minutes. Luca leaned casually against the marble counter, like the building was not about to collapse around all of us. You always did enjoy dramatic endings, brother. Damien ignored him completely. His attention stayed on me.
Steady.
Focused. Claire. My throat tightened painfully hearing my name in his voice now. Softer than before. Almost careful. There is a private exit through the service tunnels beneath the garage, he said quietly. My driver will get you out of Manhattan. I stared at him in disbelief. You are not coming with me. It was not a question. Damien's jaw shifted slightly. If I disappear tonight, every name on that flash drive dies with me. Fear crashed through me instantly. Then we leave together. Something almost sad flickered across his face. You still think this ends with both of us alive? Do not do that. My voice cracked harder now. Do not stand there acting like your life means less than mine. Silence stretched between us while rain hammered against the windows hard enough to shake the glass. Damien stepped closer slowly until only inches separated us. Claire, he said quietly, your brother believed this city could still be saved. His eyes held mine with an intensity that made breathing difficult. I stopped believing that a long time ago. My chest physically hurt hearing that. Because beneath the tailored suits and cold control and terrifying reputation, Damien Moretti sounded tired. Deeply tired. Like a man who carried too many ghosts alone for too many years. Then, why protect me? I whispered. The question seemed to hit him harder than expected. He looked down briefly before answering. Because Ethan asked me to. That is not the only reason anymore. The words escaped before I could stop them. Damien froze completely.
So did I.
The room suddenly felt too quiet. Too small. Even Luca stopped watching the elevators long enough to glance toward us with mild surprise. Damien searched my face carefully like he was afraid to misunderstand what I meant. Claire, you let me hate you for 3 years, I whispered. And somehow you still protected me anyway. Emotion flickered across his face, so quickly I almost missed it. Real emotion. Raw enough to scare him. You were the only good thing Ethan left behind, he admitted softly. My heartbeat stumbled painfully. Sirens echoed louder below. Voices shouted somewhere down the hallway. Time was running out fast now. Damien reached up slowly and brushed a damp strand of hair away from my face with the gentlest touch imaginable. The intimacy of it nearly destroyed me. You should have never met someone like me, he murmured. Tears burned behind my eyes instantly. Too late. For one dangerous second, he looked at me like he forgot the storm, the agents, the betrayal. Everything except the space between us. Then suddenly the penthouse doors slammed open down the hallway. Federal agents, a voice shouted. Nobody moved. Chaos erupted instantly around us. Damien's men reacted fast while Luca cursed under his breath near the counter. But Damien never looked away from me. Not even once. He reached into his jacket slowly and placed something cold into my palm. A silver key. Garage level, he said quietly. Black car waiting near the east tunnel. I stared at him in panic. Damien. His fingers closed gently around mine one last time. If you ever cared about me at all, he whispered, you will leave before they put handcuffs on me. People talk about heartbreak like it arrives all at once. They are wrong. Sometimes it happens in tiny, impossible moments. Like realizing the man everyone calls a monster is willing to lose everything just to keep you safe. The penthouse erupted into chaos around us the second federal agents entered the floor. Voices shouted from the hallway. Security. Alarms screamed somewhere beneath the thunder outside. Red emergency lights flashed across the walls while Damien stood directly in front of me like he could still shield me from all of it. Go, he said quietly. My fingers tightened around the silver key he pressed into my palm. I am not leaving you. Something almost desperate flickered across his face hearing that. Then it disappeared behind control again. Claire. His voice lowered. Do not make this harder than it already is. Harder. The word nearly broke me. Because somehow this man who spent years surrounded by betrayal and blood and violence still sounded more worried about my pain than his own future. One of his security men rushed toward us from the hallway. Boss, they are breaching the west entrance. Damien nodded once, without looking away from me.
Calm.
Always calm. Hold them downstairs as long as possible. The man hesitated briefly. Sir. Damien's expression sharpened instantly. That was not a request. The man nodded and disappeared back into the chaos. I stared at Damien while rain battered the windows behind him, and suddenly all I could think was how tired he looked. Not physically. Soul-deep tired. Like a man who stopped expecting good endings a long time ago. Come with me, I whispered again. We can disappear. For the first time all night, Damien smiled without sadness behind it.
Small. Real.
Beautiful enough to hurt. You still think I deserve a future? I know you do. The answer came instantly. His smile faded slowly after that. Claire, he murmured. You barely know me. No, my throat tightened painfully. I know exactly who you are now. Silence stretched between us, while voices echoed louder outside the penthouse doors. Federal agents were getting closer. We both knew it. Damien reached up slowly and brushed his thumb lightly beneath my eye before I realized tears had slipped down my face. The tenderness of it shattered something inside me completely. "You should hate me," he whispered. I tried. His breathing caught softly at that. Then suddenly Luca stepped closer from near the marble counter, his expression darker now. "Damien," he warned quietly. "They are not here to arrest you." Every instinct inside me sharpened instantly. Damien turned toward his brother slowly. "What does that mean?" Luca glanced toward the hallway where distant shouting continued beneath the storm. "Those are not federal agents." Cold slid violently through my chest. Damien's eyes narrowed immediately. "Explain." Luca's jaw tightened for the first time all night. "The cartel intercepted the operation before the Bureau could move in." My pulse spiked painfully. "You are saying those men downstairs are not law enforcement," Luca finished grimly. Everything in the room changed instantly after that. Damien's posture shifted from controlled surrender to lethal focus, so fast it stole my breath. The man standing in front of me now was no longer exhausted or broken or grieving. He was dangerous again. Every security man in the penthouse seemed to feel it too. "How many?" Damien asked coldly. Luca exhaled once. "Enough." Another loud crash echoed from the hallway outside, followed by shouts much closer now. Damien grabbed my wrist immediately. "Change of plans." My heartbeat stumbled as he pulled me toward the hidden office beside the piano. "Damien, listen to me carefully." His voice dropped low and intense enough to stop my breathing. "If they get that flash drive, Ethan dies for nothing." I nodded quickly, even though fear was making my hands shake uncontrollably now. Damien opened the office door and reached inside toward the bookshelf near the desk. Something clicked sharply. A hidden steel door slowly slid open behind the shelves, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness beneath the building. I stared at it in shock. Damien looked at me one last time while thunder shook the glass behind us. "Run when I tell you to," he said quietly. Then the penthouse doors exploded open. The sound that came from the penthouse entrance did not sound like law enforcement. It sounded like war. The reinforced doors slammed against the walls hard enough to shake the floor beneath my feet, and suddenly the room exploded into movement around me. Damien stepped in front of the hidden staircase instantly, shielding the entrance with his body before anyone else could.
"See it."
His men moved fast through the smoke and flashing emergency lights while thunder rattled the windows behind us. I could barely breathe. Everything was happening too quickly now. 1 second Damien's hand had been wrapped around mine. The next, he looked like a man preparing to lose everything. "Claire." His voice cut through the chaos immediately.
"Calm. Sharp. Certain."
I looked at him automatically. "Go downstairs. Now." "I am not leaving you." My answer came so fast it surprised both of us. Damien's eyes closed briefly, like hearing that physically hurt him. "You have to." "No," my throat tightened painfully. "Not again." That made him freeze for half a second. Just enough for me to see the emotion crack through his control again. "I already lost Ethan," I whispered. "I am not walking away while another person I care about sacrifices himself for me." The words hit the room harder than thunder. Damien stared at me like he forgot how to breathe for a moment. Behind him, red emergency lights flashed across the hidden steel staircase descending beneath the building. Luca looked between us both silently from across the penthouse, something unreadable moving behind his eyes now. Then another crash echoed from the hallway, followed by shouting much closer this time. Damien snapped back into focus instantly. "Luca," he said coldly without looking away from me, "how long before they reach this floor completely?" Luca checked the weapon in his hand calmly. "Less than 2 minutes." Fear slammed into my chest again. Damien turned back toward me immediately and grabbed both my shoulders firmly. "Claire, listen carefully." His voice dropped lower.
"Softer."
"The flash drive matters more than I do." "Stop saying that." My voice broke completely now. Damien's expression tightened painfully. "This city buried your brother as a criminal." Rain streaked down the windows behind him like tears across glass. "That drive is the only thing left that can give him his name back." My chest physically ached hearing that, because deep down, I knew he was right. Ethan spent his life trying to expose corruption nobody else had the courage to touch. If the evidence disappeared tonight, Then everything he sacrificed himself for would disappear too. Damien saw the realization hit me. Good, he whispered softly. Now run. He leaned forward suddenly and pressed something small into my hand. A folded photograph. I looked down instantly. Ethan and Damien again. Same rooftop. Same night. But this time there was writing on the back in Damien's sharp handwriting. If anything happens to me, tell Claire I finally understood why Ethan loved this city so much. My vision blurred immediately. Damien, his thumb brushed lightly against my cheek one last time, so gentle it nearly destroyed me. You were never supposed to become part of this world, he whispered, but you became the only good thing left inside mine. Before I could answer, gunfire echoed loudly from somewhere near the hallway entrance, followed by shouting and breaking glass. Damien's expression changed instantly. Cold again. Focused.
Deadly.
The Mafia boss returned in a single breath. He stepped backward toward the living room while his men positioned themselves around the penthouse. Luca moved beside his brother silently now, the betrayal between them temporarily forgotten beneath survival. Damien looked at me one final time across the flashing red lights and storm shadows. When you reach the tunnel, he said quietly, do not stop for anyone. Then he pulled the hidden steel door fully open behind me. Run, Claire. Sometimes survival feels more painful than loss. I stood at the entrance to the hidden staircase beneath Damien Moretti's penthouse while chaos erupted behind us, and every instinct inside me screamed not to leave him there. Rain hammered against the skyscraper windows. Emergency lights painted the walls red. Somewhere near the front entrance, voices shouted over breaking glass and alarms, but all I could focus on was Damien standing in the middle of the storm like a man already saying goodbye. Run, Claire. His voice cut through everything else.
Come.
Final. I shook my head immediately. Tears blurred my vision so badly I could barely see him anymore. Come with me. Damien smiled then. Small.
Tired. Heartbreaking.
If I leave tonight, they bury Ethan's truth forever.
My
chest tightened so painfully I thought it might stop my heart. Because even now, with enemies closing in and betrayal surrounding him from every direction, he was still thinking about my brother. About justice.
About me.
Luca moved closer beside Damien, checking the hallway carefully, while thunder rolled across Manhattan outside. You have 30 seconds, he warned quietly. Damien never looked away from me. Claire. His voice softened one final time. You asked me once why I smiled when you pointed a gun at me. I nodded slowly through tears. Damien took one step closer. Because after years of watching people fear me, his eyes locked onto mine with devastating honesty. You were the first person brave enough to see me as human. My breathing broke completely after that. Everything inside me cracked open all at once. The anger, the grief, the walls I spent 3 years building around Ethan's death. Damien reached up carefully and rested his forehead against mine for one brief, impossible second while the world collapsed around us. You changed me, Claire Bennett, he whispered. That was never supposed to happen. Somewhere near the hallway, shouting exploded louder, followed by rapid footsteps moving closer toward the penthouse office. Luca turned sharply toward the sound. Damien. The warning in his voice snapped the moment apart instantly. Damien stepped back from me slowly. I watched every piece of emotion disappear from his face again until only the Mafia boss remained. Cold. Controlled. Untouchable. But now I knew what lived underneath it. Go, he ordered quietly. I clutched the flash drive tighter in my shaking hand. I will come back for you. Something warm flickered briefly in his eyes hearing that. No, he said softly. You will survive me. Then the office windows shattered behind us. The sound ripped through the room violently enough to make me scream. Damien reacted instantly, shoving me backward toward the staircase entrance while his men moved between us and the broken glass. Now, Claire? Fear finally overpowered hesitation. I stumbled backward down the first steel steps beneath the hidden tunnel while Damien stood at the top of the staircase, watching me go. The last thing I saw before the steel door began sliding shut was him standing beneath flashing red lights and thunder shadows with rain behind him like a king refusing to abandon his throne. Our eyes locked one final time through the narrowing space between the closing door. Then Damien Moretti smiled at me softly. Not like a monster. Not like a mafia boss. Just like a man finally allowing himself to love someone. The steel door slammed shut above me. Darkness swallowed the tunnel instantly except for dim emergency lights stretching beneath the building. My breathing echoed through the underground passage, while tears blurred my vision, and Ethan's flash drive burned in my hand like the weight of every sacrifice that brought me here. Then suddenly my phone vibrated inside my coat pocket. Unknown number. My pulse stopped cold. Slowly, with shaking fingers, I answered. Static crackled softly through the line. Then Damien's voice came through low and calm despite the chaos behind him. Claire. Tears spilled instantly down my face. Damien. Silence. Breathing. Distant sirens. Then very quietly, like a confession meant only for me, he said, if I do not survive tonight, tell the world Ethan Bennett was a hero. The line went dead.